Welcome back to Africa Speaks. Of course, earlier we've seen President William Ruto there at the National Governing Council, the first National Governing Council of UDA party. He's the party leader, and of course he was just giving a report of their manifesto, and he's talked about various issues including health, security and education. On that note though, I want us to have a conversation here in studio focusing on education reforms in the country. And in studio I'm joined by Dr. Silvanus Amkaya Nacheri. He's an education expert. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you, dear.
I'm sure you've listened to what the president has talked about in terms of where we are when it comes to the education sector in the country, the CBC, and he's also talked about the working party that he had put in place. What are your thoughts on education in the country at the moment?
Thank you very much. My thoughts are that the president's heart is in a good place. He wants Kenya to be, to work for all Kenyans. Mm-hmm. He wants Kenya to develop, to be a good place. And education really is the way to do that. Education is the way to do that. Unfortunately, the only thing that I can say is this. The only way, this is based on history of education, of public education, the only way that education in Kenya or the public schooling system in Kenya or in Africa can work and can and bring about the goals that the president and other African presidents want is if the states take full responsibility for schooling all children ages 0 to 18 years. Full responsibility meaning in terms of public funding. The systems of schooling, the history of public schools was, before 1763, states were not involved in schooling. Mm-hmm. Governments were not involved in schooling. The churches and religious organizations and the rich, the social classes were involved in schooling their children. Mm-hmm. In 1763, the first system of schooling was established in Germany when King Frederick of Prussia decided to establish a state system of schooling for to save the souls of the children, save the souls of Germans. Germany had lost in the war, 7 years war. The king wondered why Germany lost the war. Mm-hmm. And in his mind, he concluded correctly that it's because Germans were divided. So division was the problem. Mm-hmm. Germany consists of so many dialects, 38 duchies. And so Prussia was the largest. And Prussia is the one which was going to war. It was winning before, but then started losing. So the question was why? King Frederick decided it's because Germans were divided. So he tried to talk to all these duchies, all these divided groups in Germany, to try to convince them to come together. And so that if they are together, they are strong. He did not win. He did not succeed. Mm-hmm. He could not convince them. So he decided, well, these ones are grown people. It's not easy to change grown people. He turned to children. And that's when he started the first Prussian state system of schooling, 1763. Interesting. The goal was to start socializing children. Children must be socialized collectively, not parents, not churches, not religious organizations. They must be socialized collectively. And that's what the king of Prussia, King Frederick, decided to do. Mm-hmm. So he established the system of schooling. So, and to cut the story short, as the years went by, there were improvements made. Mm-hmm. Because when something is new, of course, it's still, in the formative stages, so it grows. But European nationalists improved on that, grabbed on that and improved on that, and started demanding policies of education that required states to take responsibility for schooling small children, ages 0 to 18 years. That's when they can be reformed. The work of education is to reconstruct societies. So Germany was reconstructed through the national system of schooling that started in Prussia in 1763. In 1860, Germany defeated Austria in war. Europe paid attention because Germany had been defeated in 1763. It was a third-rate state. So the question was why? Why is Germany defeating Austria? In 1860, there was a trade fair, European. German products, manufactured products were superior to the British products. In Britain, the question was why? We were the superpower, economic superpower, the manufacturers. Why is Germany winning? In 1870, Germany beat France in the Franco-Prussian War in 1870. In France, the nationalists there said, why did we lose? Right. It's because of the German school teacher. So the national system of schooling is the way to mobilize the society together. We can try to persuade people, and the president of African countries, leaders, are trying to do that all the time. We've been trying to do that since 1963. It's not successful. It doesn't work. Only through education can a national society realize integration, become one nation. And that's the only way states can become sovereign states. Because the mission of public schools, the historical mission since 1763, has been to create sovereign states by building nations indivisible. That's how states become sovereign. Right. Sovereignty is not just a label that you get independence, you become sovereign. It's an ideal. They're ideals. In Kenya, we were supposed to become sovereign Kenyan state and a Kenyan nation indivisible. That's what was supposed to be done. And the system of schooling was to help us do that. At independence, policies, I've read all the committee reports, right, of which were established since independence to try to reform Kenyan system of schooling to work. They were all wrong. Because in there I could read terms of reference. Well, make all the recommendations you want to make, but they must be limited to the available resources. Right. Automatically, therefore, what does that mean? Some children must be left out. We are going to do our best so that we are going to say, well, put in examinations. Children fail so that some of them can remain outside. National systems of schooling, national schools, secondary schools, some private, public schools. Others are better than others, but that's the goal is, what that did is to continue to reproduce society. So Kenya has never really changed from the colonial. So colonial Kenya and independent Kenya are not different because the school system has never worked. It has never adhered to the mission of a public school system, which is to reconstruct society. So completely, it has never worked? It has not worked. Okay, and this has never worked. The reforms, the CBC, I hear about CBC, we had H44, they're all the same thing. When you read anything about them, they're about work. How are children going to get work? They start sweeping whatever, sewing whatever, so they're being shown skills or whatever. But the mission of national system of schooling is to reconstruct the mind, to create citizens. We don't even have citizens, strictly speaking. Kenya and Africa doesn't have citizens because Kenya remains the way it was in colonial time. The school systems are the ones who can reconstruct society, and it's by taking small children. Only small children can be reconstructed, taught so that they stop being, let's say, Kikuyus or Luyas or poor or rich or whatever. Only children can be done that. But if the school system accepts all of them, it's open to all of them, so that all children in Kenya have good schools, have well-trained teachers, well-funded schools, and all attention put there. That's what European countries do. Do you think we have enough resources, though, in Kenya or even in Africa to be able to do what you're talking about? Because, yes, you've touched a bit on the European system, but in the continent, is that possible, really? We do. We do. It's just public, the organization of schooling itself. For example, in Kenya, the national system of schooling is very highly centralized. I know they talk about decentralization of TSC and so forth and so forth. It's not decentralized, it's very highly centralized. So the Ministry of Education is so big that we've got inspectors of schools and everything is done from Nairobi. KI is there. So all this is a very large ministry. And so what happens is therefore, based on public schooling research, there's no way schooling can be managed effectively from Nairobi to throughout the country. They don't know what is in Mandera. They don't know what is in Mayale. Until the school system, for example, needs to be very highly decentralized. Research shows only highly decentralized schooling systems work, because then you can use the local resources. The local people know about the seasons, for example. arid areas, they know what is suitable there. So when education experts are there, they can do the right thing to equitably distribute system. But this question of employing teachers from Nairobi, Teacher Service Commission, examinations from Nairobi, those systems don't work. It's very highly, it takes a lot of money. There's a lot of money, there are resources, but then those resources are misplaced. So public schooling educations need to be reformed in such a way so that citizens can participate, not through high tax or whatever, but there is a way to organize it, and local authorities take part. In Europe, local authorities are the ones which are in charge of education, for example.
Tell us an example, because I know you have an education center, let's call it that way, in Texas, right? So that's the US. So how different is it compared to, of course, Kenya? Of course, it's developed, but is there something that we can adopt from that system? Yes.
It's just that Texas, the difference between Texas, for example, and Kenya, what I can say is that Texas, there's politics all the time. But overall, Texas and other US states adhere to the mission of public schooling. They believe very strongly the way you treat a child is the way he'll be when he's grown. So to create citizens, they are very careful about the children, give them equal access to schooling. Not free education. Free education is politics. But give them free equal access. So the politics can be, well, that county there has this amount of money for children. That county there has this amount of children. Educating one child is $6,000, for example, in this county. In this county, it's $3,000. The academics, the educationists and the teachers' union will ask questions, what's going on?
Right.
Why these disparities? Because disparities will cause differences in society. Children will grow up differently. And they will basically the system will reproduce the society instead of recreate. Public schools are supposed to recreate, reconstruct society.
Right.
Europe did not become widely industrialized until those countries were reconstructed. They all had problems, like problems in Africa, wars, the plagues, corruption, everything was there. No roads. In France in the 19th century, there was no French language. There were so many dialects. Public schools reconstructed France, the village schools. So that's what Africa really is. Kenya needs that, Africa needs that. And it must be based on the ideals. In other words, public policies of a national society must be informed by the ideals of state sovereignty and nation building. In Kenya, it should be public school policy of education must be informed. If the system is to reconstruct Kenya, and Kenya works for everybody, and Kenyans become united, they must be consistent with the ideas of a sovereign Kenyan state and a Kenyan nation indivisible.
Right.
All Africa will change, Kenya will change.
I like the fact that you've given a solution, but just to wrap up now, if you're given an opportunity, especially here in Kenya, to change the system, what would be the first step that you take? Some of the things that I will do is this. Right.
First of all, train teachers. Start training teachers. Schools now, they find one teacher, graduate teacher in a primary school, and told to this CBC, you're going to teach this CBC class. That's what I've been told. So the children don't have even adequate teachers. So train teachers. In the present world, the teachers need to have degrees. Primary school children, small kids from kindergarten, if you entrust them to people who are not well trained, well educated, what are you doing in the present world? So if I was given a chance and I was direct policy, university will open up, train teachers deliberately, because a sovereign state and a nation indivisible are very deliberate outcomes of the expansion of schooling to the masses. So all children have, all teachers be trained throughout the country. Secondly, I would very highly decentralized schooling system. This nationalized institution like the Teacher Service Commission really should go. If you go to Texas, you don't even hear about teachers are employed locally.
Right.
They employ locally because the local jurisdictions form policies and they know how the children should be schooled, and they know the teachers they want to hire. They've got power to determine that. You know, when it's very highly decentralized, then the citizens are powerless, basically. We say we want to integrate everybody, include everybody in decision making, but we don't.
Right.
Because institutions like the TSC are very powerful. They decide or they make all the decisions. KIA, National Examination System.
Very powerful.
You know,
right.
yeah.
Right.
So